What if your biggest fear isn't just emotional, it's karmic? Your Saturn sign reveals the exact subconscious fear that's been quietly shaping your life, the patterns you can't break, the ways you hold back, the things you think are just you, but are really your Saturn test. Saturn doesn't show up to punish you. It shows you what you fear the most so you can finally step into your power. In this video, I'm breaking down the core fear behind each Saturn sign, how it shows up in your relationships, decisions, and inner dialogue, and how to rewrite the pattern that's been running the show. If you're navigating your Saturn return, stuck in a self-sabotage loop, or just feel blocked and don't know why, this video is your breakthrough. So grab your birth chart, find the sign that Saturn is in your chart, and let's dive in.
Saturn in Aries is the contract to become your own source of power. You came here to learn what it means to lead yourself, trust yourself, and to act on your desires without waiting for approval, permission, or protection. But that doesn't mean it's easy. With this placement, Aries' bold, instinctive energy is filtered through Saturn's fear, hesitation, and conditioning. So instead of acting with clarity and confidence, you may feel like you're constantly second-guessing yourself, fearing that every choice could be a mistake, or worse, that you'll be punished just for choosing you. This is the placement of the lone warrior, the soul who's often been on their own, forced to grow up fast, carry the weight, or survive in environments where autonomy wasn't supported, but was still expected. And now, in this life, you're being called to rewrite the story of what power, choice, and leadership really mean. Now, the core subconscious fear for Saturn and Aries is the fear of taking up space, making the wrong move, or being punished for asserting your will. Deep down, Saturn in Aries holds a karmic fear that says, if I act on my truth, something bad will happen. If I make the wrong choice, I'll ruin everything. If I speak up, I'll be seen as aggressive, selfish, or reckless. This often comes from past life trauma around war, conflict, or betrayal. Childhood environments where asserting yourself led to punishment, shame, or rejection. Being told early on that your independence was dangerous or disrespectful. Or even witnessing abuse of power and deciding you'd rather stay silent than become like them. As a result, you may now live with a chronic inner conflict. Your soul is wired for bold action, but your conditioning tells you to wait, shrink, or ask first. Now, this fear shows up as hesitation, self-doubt, and overthinking, masked as maturity. It keeps you in a loop of delaying decisions. You're scared that choosing wrong means you'll ruin your life. Avoiding leadership roles, even though you're naturally assertive, you fear being disliked or resented. You may suppress your anger or your instinct because you associate raw emotion with chaos or harm. Also, shrinking your voice. You've learned to water yourself down to avoid confrontation, as well as a loop of waiting for permission, feeling stuck but still unable to move without outside validation. Even though Aries energy is meant to initiate, Saturn here can make you afraid to start. You're often harder on yourself than anyone else could ever be. And when you do finally take action, you often guilt trip yourself afterwards. So in your daily life, this can look like second-guessing your every move, struggling to ask for what you want, staying stuck in cycles of procrastination and frustration, or fearing your ambition or anger will make others abandon you. Saturn in Aries mastery is embodied, unapologetic self-leadership. Not leadership in a corporate sense, but in the sacred sense. The ability to trust your own instincts, act from alignment, and own your energy without waiting for validation. When you heal this placement, you realize it's safe to want what you want, that you don't need to ask permission to exist, that taking up space is not a threat, it's a gift, and that action doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. You no longer make yourself small to be digestible. You stop apologizing for your presence. You stop filtering your intuition through fear of rejection. Saturn in Aries mastery says, I choose myself, not because I'm selfish, but because I'm finally listening to the fire within me. This is where your courage becomes sacred. Your boldness becomes a light. Your individuality becomes your medicine. Now, to rewrite the fear and reprogram this placement, the first step is to affirm, my desire is divine direction. Repeat this when you feel the instinct to act, but also feel the fear creep in. Also try saying, it's safe to trust my fire. It's safe to want. It's safe to begin. Action is not a threat. It's my gift to the world. Let your inner child hear that going first doesn't mean being unsafe. Next are some journaling prompts to help you claim the fire. So you can ask yourself, what moments made me feel like my power was too much? What belief still tells me I need permission to act on what I want? If I trusted my instincts fully, what would I start today? These help reclaim the confidence your soul always had before the world made you doubt it. Next is embodied action practice. So every week, take one action purely because you want to, not because it's logical, needed, or asked of you, but because it feels true. So for example, starting a project or offer that excites you, posting something bold or vulnerable, saying no or yes without over-explaining. This strengthens the connection between your intuition and your actions. And finally, mirror work. I am safe to lead. So look into the mirror, hold eye contact, and say, I lead myself. I trust myself. I am safe to choose. Do this when you're spiraling in indecision or fearing backlash. Anchor into your own authority, even if your voice shakes. I'd love to hear how this resonated with you, so be sure to let me know in the comments. And of course, be sure to like, share this with your friends who can also benefit from this message, and subscribe to stay in the flow. And if you're ready to shift into the timeline that's already aligned for you, my signature one-on-one sessions and tools are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Saturn in Taurus is the soul contract to build unshakable internal stability, to become so rooted in your own worth, values, and energy that nothing external can steal your peace. Taurus energy is about embodiment, pleasure, self-worth, and resource security. But when Saturn's fear overlays it, this becomes a lifelong journey of earning safety the hard way. You are here to master the art of grounded abundance, not through hoarding or hustling, but through inner alignment and trust in your value. Your karmic lesson is, I am not my possessions. I am not what I produce. I am worthy because I exist. But that lesson didn't come with ease. It came from loss, lack, and the fear that stability could disappear at any moment. The core subconscious fear for Saturn in Taurus is the fear of instability, loss, and not being enough to survive on your own. Saturn in Taurus carries a deep-rooted fear that if you don't work hard enough, perform well enough, or hold tight enough, everything will be taken from you. This can stem from past lives of poverty, famine, or material betrayal. Early life experiences of financial insecurity, emotional neglect, or conditional support. Family systems that equated love with money, usefulness, or appearances. Or a lack of nurturing that taught you to earn love through providing or performing. So now you may live with the subconscious belief that peace is dangerous because comfort never lasted long and you always had to brace for the fallout. This fear shapes your entire relationship to your body, money, value, and rest. So you may overwork to deserve stability, constantly proving your worth through productivity, afraid that if you stop, everything will fall apart. You may cling to what's familiar, staying in relationships, jobs, or routines that are draining just because they feel safe. You may avoid pleasure, feeling guilt around rest, beauty, luxury, or enjoyment because they feel unearned or temporary. You may devalue your own needs, putting others first because deep down you don't fully trust that your needs are valid or sustainable. Or you may associate worth with output, measuring your value in what you can give, not who you are. In daily life, this may look like saying yes to jobs that exhaust you just for the check, avoiding investment in yourself out of fear that you can't afford it, dismissing your talents because they're not practical enough, or staying busy because slowing down feels unsafe. The irony is that the more you grip, the more disconnected you feel from the flow of true abundance. Saturn in Taurus mastery is embodied self-worth. You no longer hustle for safety. You become the safety. You no longer wait to be validated. You decide your value is non-negotiable. When you heal this placement, you begin to trust that your presence is valuable, even when you're not doing. You begin to feel safe being seen in your softness, slowness, and sensuality. You begin to release the belief that security only comes through sacrifice. And you begin to build lasting wealth, health, and peace from alignment, not anxiety. You finally stop chasing safety outside of yourself because you are the source. Saturn in Taurus mastery says, "My peace is not conditional. I do not hustle for worth. I embody it." You become the anchor, the grounded artist, the sensual leader, the one whose calm presence shifts rooms because it's real and it's earned. Now, to rewrite the fear and reprogram this placement, the first step is to affirm, my worth is not earned, it's remembered. Say this when you catch yourself tying your value to output, income, or status. And try saying, even when I rest, I am valuable. My presence creates abundance. My peace creates power. Next are some journaling prompts. So you can ask yourself, what do I still believe I have to do to deserve security? Where am I holding on to what's familiar because I don't believe better is available? What would I allow myself to receive if I knew I was already worthy? These bring awareness to the scarcity scripts still running the show. Next is nervous system ritual. So lay down with one hand on your heart, one on your womb or belly, and breathe in slowly and repeat. I am rooted. I am held. I am enough. Let your body remember what grounded safety feels like without proving, fixing, or earning anything. And finally, do a pleasure reclamation practice. So do one small thing every day that brings pure, slow pleasure, not as a reward, but as a requirement. So this could be eating slowly and savoring every bite, touching something soft or beautiful and soaking it in, listening to music or sitting in silence just to feel. This rewires the nervous system to see pleasure as safe, not dangerous or fleeting. I'd love to hear how this resonated with you, so definitely let me know in the comments. And of course, be sure to like, share this with your friends, and subscribe for more. And if you're ready to follow the nudge that brought you here, my signature one-on-one sessions and tools are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Saturn in Gemini is the soul's contract to master communication, clarity, and self-expression. But this isn't just about being articulate. This is about healing the fear that your words will be dismissed, distorted, or destroyed if you dare to speak your truth. Gemini energy is curious, fast-moving, witty, and mentally agile. But Saturn here slows things down. It brings hesitation, self-censorship, and over-analysis. You came into this lifetime to break the karmic belief that your thoughts, opinions, or ideas don't matter. Saturn in Gemini calls you to become a disciplined messenger, one who doesn't just speak to be heard, but speaks with integrity, impact, and self-trust. But before that mastery can emerge, you have to face the invisible weight you've been carrying in your mind for years, and sometimes lifetimes. The core subconscious fear for Saturn in Gemini is the fear of saying the wrong thing or not being heard at all. Saturn in Gemini often carries the karmic imprint of being silenced, mocked, or misunderstood in a past life. Having your intelligence or learning style dismissed in childhood. Being the quiet one who had to hold it all in. Or being told that your voice was too much, not enough, or inappropriate. Because of this, you may have internalized the belief, if I speak up, I'll be judged, rejected, or shut down. I need to say it perfect or not at all. Or no one really understands me anyway. Your inner world may feel vivid, rich, and full of insight, but the fear of exposure, error, or embarrassment keeps you trapped in your head. This fear often manifests as mental paralysis, perfectionism, or people-pleasing communication. So you may overthink every word, crafting text, emails, or posts for hours out of fear they'll be misinterpreted. You may doubt your intelligence. Even if you are brilliant, you may struggle with imposter syndrome or fear of being wrong. You may hold back your ideas, waiting until they're perfect to share, and sometimes never sharing them at all. You may shift your tone to match others, subconsciously code switching or altering your language to stay safe. Or you may talk in circles or shut down entirely, struggling to say what you really mean when emotions get involved. In daily life, this can look like constant second guessing in conversations, keeping quiet in group settings, even when you have something valuable to offer, avoiding visibility, or feeling disconnected from others, even though you're constantly thinking about how to connect. Saturn in Gemini often creates the pain of being mentally full, but emotionally voiceless. Saturn in Gemini mastery is liberated, grounded, self-honoring expression. Not loud, not performative, but true. When you begin to heal this placement, you realize you don't need to sound smart to be powerful. You realize that your lived experience is enough to be worth listening to. That it's okay to say the wrong thing sometimes. Your worth doesn't depend on being flawless. And that your ideas have value even before they're polished. You stop performing mental gymnastics trying to be understood and start speaking from a place of clarity, not control. When you've mastered Saturn in Gemini, you're saying, I trust my voice. I don't need to be perfect. I need to be real. You then become the calm communicator, the clear channel, the teacher, writer, or thought leader whose words cut through the noise because they're anchored in self-trust, not approval. Now, to rewrite the fear of this placement and reprogram it, the first step is to affirm. My voice is safe. My words are enough. Use this affirmation when you're spiraling in self-doubt or silencing yourself. You can even try saying, it's okay to be misunderstood. I speak for clarity, not control. Even if my voice shakes, it still matters. Next are some journaling prompts to uncover the silence spell. So you can ask yourself, what early memory taught me that speaking up was unsafe? Where do I still believe I need to be perfect to be heard? If I trusted my voice, what would I say today? These will help unravel where the fear first took root. Next is a voice reclamation practice. So each day, say something out loud that you normally only write in a journal. This could be a boundary, a truth, an idea, an affirmation. Train your body to believe that expressing yourself doesn't equal danger, that it equals freedom. And finally, a throat chakra grounding ritual. So place your hand gently on your throat and breathe slowly. Say, I allow myself to be heard. My words carry power and peace. Feel the vibration in your body. You're teaching Saturn that your expression is a responsibility you're ready to carry with softness, not fear. I'd love to hear how this resonated with you, so definitely let me know in the comments. And of course, be sure to like, share this with your friends who can also benefit from this message, and subscribe to stay in the flow. And if you're ready to start living the version of your life you actually deserve, my signature one-on-one sessions and tools are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Saturn in Cancer is the soul's sacred assignment to rebuild your inner emotional foundation, brick by brick. It's about learning how to feel, nurture, and express your emotions without shame or suppression. Cancer is the sign of comfort, protection, and belonging. But Saturn here brings fear, hard lessons, and emotional walls. You came into this lifetime to heal the belief that love equals obligation and that vulnerability equals weakness. With this placement, your soul is learning how to be emotionally responsible without feeling emotionally repressed. How to care deeply without self-abandoning, and how to create your own inner safety instead of waiting for someone else to provide it. But this doesn't come from ease. It often comes from deep emotional lack, neglect, or betrayal in your earliest environments. The core subconscious fear for Saturn in Cancer is the fear of being emotionally unsafe, unsupported, or abandoned. This is the wound of the emotional provider. Saturn in Cancer holds the imprint of being the parent to your parents, having your feelings dismissed, mocked, or used against you, being shamed for being too sensitive, taking on everyone's emotions while your own were ignored, and being taught that expressing your needs made you a burden. So you may have internalized the belief, if I show how I really feel, I'll be rejected. If I ask for love, I'll be disappointed. If I don't hold everything together, no one else will. So instead, you built emotional armor. You stopped asking. You started holding, and you never stopped. This fear often shows up in your relationship to family and caretaking, emotional expression and softness, and asking for help and letting yourself be held. So you may take care of everyone else, becoming the emotional container in every room, but rarely feeling safe enough to fall apart yourself. You may suppress your real needs, acting strong, composed, or fine, because you don't trust that anyone will truly support you. You may feel guilt around setting boundaries, because somewhere in your past, saying no meant losing love. You may avoid intimacy or become clingy and hyper-attuned, trying to predict others' moods before they explode or leave. And you may confuse responsibility with love, attracting relationships where you parent, fix, or protect the other person as a way to feel secure. In daily life, this can look like carrying invisible emotional weight for your family or partner, being emotionally numb or overreactive with no in-between, waiting to be held and comforted, but feeling too unsafe to let your guard down, feeling alone, even when surrounded by people. Saturn in Cancer often creates a silent ache, the deep longing to feel safe enough to be soft. Saturn in Cancer mastery is emotional reparenting and soul-rooted belonging. It's knowing how to give yourself the love, care, and security you were never taught to receive. When you begin to heal this placement, you realize you are allowed to have needs. You don't have to carry everything to be worthy of love. That feeling deeply isn't dangerous. It's divine. And that emotional intimacy isn't earned through sacrifice. It's allowed through truth. You learn how to soften without crumbling, how to feel without drowning, and how to care for others without abandoning yourself. When you've mastered Saturn in Cancer, you are saying, I am safe to feel. I am safe to receive. I am home within myself. You become the healed nurturer, the emotionally mature guide, the one who holds space for others, not out of obligation, but from overflow. Now, to rewrite the fear of this placement and reprogram it, the first step is to affirm, my vulnerability is not a risk. It's a return. Use this when you feel the urge to emotionally shut down, pull away, or overfunction. So try saying, I am safe to feel what I feel. I'm allowed to need care. I don't have to earn love by holding it all together. Next are some journaling prompts. So you can ask yourself, what did I learn about emotions growing up? What message did I receive about asking for help? What would change in my life if I believed I was safe to receive. These will reveal the emotional survival patterns you've been carrying for too long. Next is an inner child check-in practice. So every morning or night, place your hand on your chest and ask, "Little me, what do I need today?" Give them what they ask for, even in a small way. This restores trust in your inner protector. And finally, a receptivity ritual. Practice letting yourself be cared for. So let someone cook for you, compliment you, support you. Don't deflect or downplay. Let it in. If no one's around, practice this with the universe. Wrap yourself in a blanket like a cocoon. Light a candle and say, "I am worthy of comfort." Feel the support of the earth beneath you. You are always held. I'd love to hear how this resonated for you, so definitely let me know in the comments. And of course, be sure to like, share this with your friends, and subscribe for more. And if you're tired of the self-help spiral and just want real results, my signature one-on-one sessions and tools are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Saturn in Leo is the soul's contract to reclaim your right to be seen, celebrated, and expressed. Leo is the sign of creativity, heart-centered leadership, and unapologetic self-expression. But when Saturn is here, the light doesn't come easy. This placement often reflects a karmic or ancestral history of being shamed for shining. Whether in this lifetime or another, you learned that being visible could lead to ridicule, rejection, or punishment. So you carry a subconscious fear that standing out equals getting hurt. But your soul didn't come here to hide. You're here to master the courage to be seen fully and to build confidence not just through ego or applause, but through integrity, devotion, and inner fire. The core subconscious fear for Saturn and Leo is the fear of being judged, humiliated, or unloved for being fully expressed. Saturn in Leo often holds deep, hidden wounds around self-worth and visibility, such as being the child who had to tone it down to keep the peace, being mocked or rejected when you tried to express your talents, being punished for wanting attention, affection, or validation. Feeling like love was conditional on performance, not authenticity. As well as past lives where leadership or creativity led to downfall, betrayal, or isolation. This creates a painful internal belief. If I shine too brightly, I'll be torn down. If I take up space, I'll lose love. It's safer to be behind the scenes than to risk being seen. So instead of leading from the heart, you stay small, You wait for permission. You filter your happiness and silence your brilliance. This fear often controls how you express yourself, receive praise, and show up in leadership or creative spaces. So you may downplay your gifts, refusing to claim your talents or spiritual authority unless someone else names them first. You may hide your creativity, keeping your art, ideas, or passions secret because you're scared of being cringy, wrong, or rejected. You may people please for validation, trying to earn approval through perfection instead of authenticity. You may fear visibility, avoiding platforms, stages, or leadership roles that could draw too much attention. And you may overperform or underperform, swinging between burnout to be liked and paralysis to avoid being seen at all. In daily life, this might look like feeling uncomfortable when people compliment or celebrate you, holding back when you have something meaningful to say, struggling to let your joy be loud, or creating content, ideas, or art and then never sharing them. Saturn in Leo is often the placement of the brilliant soul who's convinced it's safer to hide. Mastering Saturn in Leo is confident, heart-centered expression that doesn't beg for permission. It's the moment you realize your light was never too much. It was just waiting for you to stop dimming it. When you heal this placement, you begin to express yourself freely, even without applause. You create because it brings you happiness, not because it earns you love. You allow yourself to be celebrated, seen, and adored without guilt. You take the lead in your own life, not to dominate, but to inspire. And you begin to build a legacy rooted in your truth, not someone else's expectations. Saturn in Leo says, I don't need to prove my light. I just need to trust it. You become the radiant artist, the grounded leader, the magnetic soul whose power comes from presence, not performance. Now, to rewrite this fear and reprogram it, the first step is to affirm it's safe to be seen. Repeat this, especially when you feel like shrinking, downplaying, or dismissing yourself. So instead, try saying, I'm allowed to take up space. My joy is a gift. My light doesn't harm, it heals. Even if not everyone claps, I still get to shine. Next are some journaling prompts to help you unblock the light. So ask yourself, what moments made me feel like being visible equates danger? Where do I still fear being too much for others? What would I express if I stopped managing how I'm perceived? Next is mirror practice to witness your brilliance. So look into your own eyes in the mirror for 2 full minutes. Then speak out loud. I am safe to be seen. I am powerful. I am radiant. Let the discomfort rise and stay anyway. You are rewiring your nervous system to feel seen and safe at the same time. And finally, a creative liberation ritual. So create something, anything, purely for the joy of it. Paint, dance, sing, post that bold caption, wear something extra, share your idea aloud. Even if it scares you, and especially if it does, because every time you let your soul shine without asking for permission, you reclaim your power. I would love to hear how this resonated with you, so definitely let me know in the comments. And of course, be sure to like, share this with your friends, and subscribe for more. And if you're ready to flow into the timeline that's already aligned for you, my signature one-on-one sessions and tools are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Saturn in Virgo is the soul's assignment to restore order without self-erasure, to heal the belief that perfection equals safety, and that your value depends on getting everything right. Virgo is the sign of refinement, precision, service, and healing. But with Saturn here, this becomes a karmic journey of learning to hold high standards without turning them into self-punishment. You are here to be of service, but not as a martyr. You're here to build systems, but not at the cost of your peace. Saturn in Virgo carries lifetimes of being the fixer, the doer, the one who quietly carries the mental load for everyone. And in this life, you're here to break the belief that worth equals usefulness, and to remember that you are worthy even when you're not productive, polished, or perfect. The core subconscious fear with this placement is the fear of being wrong, flawed, or not enough. Saturn in Virgo often carries the karmic imprint of being criticized or micromanaged in childhood, being rewarded only when you performed, achieved, or improved others, being blamed for mistakes, even when you were just trying to help. Growing up in environments where control was love and perfection was survival, as well as past lives of servitude, where your value came solely from being useful or obedient. This creates a deeply internalized belief. If I'm not perfect, I won't be loved. If I miss a detail, I'll be punished. If I don't fix everything, I'll be rejected. So instead of being present, you become vigilant, hyper-aware, over-responsible, and exhausted. This fear often shows up in your work habits, the relationship you have with your body, your internal dialogue, and in your standards in love and service. So you may obsess over getting things just right, delaying decisions or over-editing your work because you fear being wrong or judged. You may fix others to avoid facing yourself. You may feel safer managing others' chaos than sitting with your own emotions. You may hyper-focus on flaws, yours and theirs, constantly scanning for what's off so you can correct it before anyone else does. You may criticize your body, your productivity, or your output, measuring your worth in terms of efficiency or improvement. And you may struggle to ask for help because if others see you struggle, the illusion of competence might collapse. So in daily life, this might look like burning out because you're doing everything the right way. Feeling guilty when you rest or ashamed when you make a mistake. Avoiding creative expression because it won't be perfect. Or staying in roles where you are overgiving and under-recognized. Saturn in Virgo can create the quiet torture of never feeling done, never feeling enough, and never feeling free. Mastering Saturn in Virgo is embodied self-trust through imperfection. It's learning that being present is more powerful than being perfect. When you begin to heal this placement, you realize your job is not to fix everything. It's to flow with what's real. You realize that mistakes don't make you unworthy. They make you human. That order and structure are sacred, but they should serve you, not enslave you. You realize that you're allowed to be in process, not just the polished product. You stop holding yourself hostage to standards no one else asks you to meet. You stop picking yourself apart before anyone else gets the chance. And you start honoring your healing as sacred, mess and all. Saturn in Virgo says, I no longer strive for flawlessness. I strive for wholeness. You become the grounded healer, the conscious architect, the intuitive technician who builds beauty and service from integration, not insecurity. Now, to rewrite the fear of this placement and to reprogram it, the first step is to affirm, done is divine. Use this when you're spiraling in over-editing, self-critique, or delay. Try saying, I'm allowed to show up in process. My healing doesn't need to be perfect to be powerful. It's safe to get it wrong. It's sacred to keep going. Next are some journaling prompts to dismantle perfectionism. So you can ask yourself, where did I learn that mistakes equal rejection? What part of me still believes I have to earn my worth? What would I do differently if I trusted that I was already enough? These help you uncover the fear under the fixation and speak to it with compassion. Next is nervous system release. This is the sacred pause. So set a timer for 10 minutes. Lie down. No fixing, no improving, just be. Let yourself exist without performing. This is how you show Saturn that rest and imperfection are safe. And finally, imperfect expression challenge. So post something that isn't perfect. Speak before you script it. Wear the outfit. Share the draft. The goal is to prove to yourself that being real is more magnetic and more liberating than being flawless. I'd love to hear how this resonated with you, so be sure to let me know in the comments. And of course, be sure to share this with your friends who can also benefit from this message, and subscribe to stay in the flow. And if you're ready to step into your upgraded timeline, my signature one-on-one sessions and tools are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Saturn in Libra is the soul's contract to heal your relationship with relationships. You came here to learn that connection doesn't have to cost your identity. That partnership can be rooted in truth, not performance. That love, when aligned, doesn't require self-abandonment to feel secure. Libra is the sign of balance, beauty, and one-on-one connection. But Saturn here often means your early experience of love was filtered through pressure, fear, or unfair responsibility. You were likely taught, directly or indirectly, that love must be earned. Harmony must be maintained at all cost. And being good means being agreeable. So now, your karmic journey is learning how to stay connected to others without disconnecting from yourself. Now, the core subconscious fear for Saturn in Libra is the fear of being rejected, unloved, or alone if you stop pleasing others. Saturn in Libra holds the karmic imprint of being chosen only when you performed or looked perfect, being punished, ghosted, or guilted for asserting your truth, abandoning your own needs to keep the peace, being in one-sided or codependent relationships where your needs were invisible, and carrying the pressure to be the mediator, peacekeeper, or emotional sponge in your family. This creates a subconscious pattern. If I say what I really feel, I'll lose them. If I prioritize myself, I'll be alone. If I don't keep it balanced, everything will fall apart. So instead of being authentic, you over-adapt. You tone yourself down. You shrink your boundaries and silence your needs. Not because you're weak, but because you're terrified of losing connection. This fear often infiltrates how you show up in love and dating, friendships, group dynamics, negotiation, and emotional confrontation. So you may overgive to avoid guilt, saying yes when you mean no, and feeling responsible for others' emotional states. You may delay your truth. So you avoid bringing up issues or setting boundaries until resentment explodes. You may base your worth on being chosen, believing your value rises or falls based on whether someone wants you. You may compromise to the point of self-erasure, settling in relationships or jobs that don't reflect your full power. And you may mirror others too much. So you're adapting your opinions, emotions, or preferences to keep the connection smooth. In your daily life, this can look like playing therapist in your relationships, but feeling unseen yourself. Choosing peace over truth, then feeling resentful or disconnected. Constantly scanning others' moods to make sure you're still okay. Or fearing direct conflict, even when something deeply matters to you. Saturn in Libra can create the painful loop of being liked by everyone, but fully known by no one. Mastery of Saturn in Libra is aligned partnership built on mutual truth. You stop choosing connection that requires your silence. You stop viewing love as a reward you have to earn. When you heal this placement, you realize you don't have to keep the peace if it costs your truth. You are allowed to be chosen as you are, not as who you perform to be. You realize that boundaries are the doorway to real intimacy, and that love is not something you chase. It's something you honor. You learn to create partnerships that are rooted in reciprocity, not role-playing. Harmony that comes from alignment, not exhaustion. And connection that deepens because you're honest, not despite it. Saturn in Libra says, I don't trade my truth to be loved. The right people love me more because of it. You become the conscious communicator, the wise partner, the soul who knows how to build love that lasts because it's real. Now, to rewrite the fear of this placement and reprogram it, the first step is to affirm love doesn't require sacrifice, only presence. Use this when you're about to overgive, self-abandon, or suppress your truth. And you can try saying, I can be loved and still say no. I am worthy of connection that includes my full self. Peace is not the same as silence. Next are some journaling prompts for reclaiming your voice in love. So you can ask yourself, where do I still equate love with self-sacrifice? What truth am I still afraid will make someone leave? What boundaries would I set if I trusted I wouldn't be abandoned? Let these lead you to the edges of where your self-protection is still running the show. Next is micro-boundary practice. So choose one place where you've been avoiding your truth. Speak it gently, clearly, directly. It could be saying no without over-explaining, asking for your needs to be met, or letting silence happen without rushing to fix it. Every time you choose integrity over approval, Saturn in Libra relaxes. And finally, mirror work. The I choose me ritual. So stand in front of the mirror, breathe into your heart, and say, I choose me first, and the right love will meet me there. Repeat this until it doesn't just sound true, it feels true. I'd love to hear how this resonated with you, so definitely let me know in the comments. And of course, be sure to like, share this with your friends who can also benefit from this message, and subscribe to stay in the flow. And if you're ready to follow the nudge that brought you here, my signature one-on-one sessions and tools are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Saturn in Scorpio is the soul's contract to master the responsible use of power, emotional truth, and energetic boundaries. Scorpio is the sign of transformation, intimacy, and the unseen. But when Saturn is here, that terrain feels dangerous, not divine. You came into this life carrying deep karmic memories of emotional intensity that destroyed more than it healed. Times when power was used to manipulate, vulnerability led to betrayal, and control felt like the only way to survive. This lifetime is about transmuting that pain into healthy power, emotional mastery, and sacred inner authority. Saturn in Scorpio is not here to stay safe. It's here to show you that you can walk through the fire and not lose yourself. You can surrender and still be in control. The core subconscious fear for Saturn in Scorpio is the fear of betrayal, loss of control, emotional exposure, or being consumed by others. This placement often holds the karmic imprint of being emotionally or sexually manipulated or violated in a past life. Experiencing betrayal by someone you trusted deeply. Being forced to hide your truth, your pain, or your power to survive. Living in environments of emotional secrecy, volatility, or emotional taboo. Feeling like trusting others equals losing yourself. This results in a subconscious belief. If I let them in, they'll destroy me. If I show them my pain, they'll use it against me. I have to stay in control to stay safe. So you close off. You self-protect. You might stay mysterious, detached, or guarded, not because you don't feel deeply, but because you feel everything, and you fear being overpowered by it. This fear shapes your relationship to emotional intimacy, trust, sexuality, energetic exchange, money, death, and personal transformation. So you may withhold your vulnerability, showing only what's safe while hiding what's real. You may control to avoid chaos, micromanaging relationships, or keeping people at arm's length so they can't hurt you. You may struggle to trust others' motives, assuming people are manipulative or unsafe until proven otherwise. You may hold grudges or repress emotions, feeling that forgiveness equals losing power. Or you may over-sexualize or under-sexualize yourself, using intimacy as a way to control or fearing it altogether. In daily life, this can look like pushing people away, even when you crave connection, being magnetic but unavailable, seductive but untouchable, struggling to surrender to love, money, or change, even when it's safe to do so, as well as living in emotional extremes, all or nothing, loyalty or exile, power or powerlessness. Saturn in Scorpio often creates the paradox of craving deep intimacy while fearing emotional annihilation. Mastery of Saturn in Scorpio is emotional sovereignty. It's learning that vulnerability doesn't mean weakness, and control doesn't guarantee safety. When you begin to heal this placement, you realize power doesn't have to dominate. It can hold, protect, and guide. You realize that you don't have to hide to be safe. That trusting others doesn't mean abandoning yourself. And that surrender isn't collapse. It's sacred alignment with transformation. You become a force of nature, grounded, magnetic, discerning, emotionally intelligent, and capable of sitting with life's messiest truths without flinching. Saturn in Scorpio says, I can be powerful and open. I don't need to control everything to feel safe. You learn to channel intensity into healing. You hold emotional space like no one else. You lead through depth, not domination. Now, to rewrite the fear that comes with this placement and reprogram it, the first step is to affirm my vulnerability is protected by my discernment. Use this when you feel the urge to shut down, pull back, or control your way into safety. So you can try saying, it's safe to feel. I can be transparent and still powerful. Boundaries don't block love, they shape it. Next are some journaling prompts to help unravel the power wound. So you can ask yourself, where did I learn that being open equals being hurt? What part of me still equates surrender with danger? Where am I using control to avoid grief, change, or intimacy. These help reveal where you're still operating from emotional trauma instead of emotional truth. Next is somatic practice, releasing the armor. So lay on the floor, arms wide open, palms up. Breathe deeply into your belly. Imagine shedding energetic armor and whisper to yourself, I no longer need to guard my heart like it's a battlefield. Let yourself feel without fixating or fleeing. And finally, power integrity practice. Each time you want to withdraw, lash out, or manipulate, pause. Choose the honest response, even if it feels raw. For example, this made me feel unsafe. I need more time to open. I'm not ready to share, but I still care. This creates safety through truth, not through hiding. I love to hear how this resonated with you, so be sure to let me know in the comments. And of course, be sure to like, share this with your friends who can also benefit from this message, and subscribe for more. And if you're done playing small with your power, my signature one-on-one sessions and tools are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Saturn in Sagittarius is the soul contract to rebuild your trust in your own truth. Not the truth that was handed to you, not the version that kept you safe, but the one that lives in your bones, even if it breaks every rule you were taught to follow. Sagittarius is the sign of expansion, meaning, and vision. But Saturn here tells a different story, one of contraction, spiritual disillusionment, and the fear of being wrong. You've likely been burned before by mentors, belief systems, institutions, or even your own optimism. You came into this lifetime carrying karmic grief around trusting the wrong people, believing in the wrong path, or getting your hopes up only to be disappointed. This lifetime isn't about silencing that fire. It's about learning how to trust it again. The core subconscious fear of this placement is the fear of being misguided, disillusioned, or punished for trusting your own direction. With Saturn in Sagittarius, your soul remembers what it's like to be exiled for believing in something bigger, for following a spiritual path that led to shame, loss, or betrayal. What it's like to be ridiculed or rejected for questioning authority. What it's like to lose faith in yourself after a leap of faith went wrong. And what it's like to watch others blindly follow false truths while you held the doubt inside. This creates a deep subconscious belief. If I trust my intuition, I'll be wrong. If I believe in too much, I'll lose everything. If I try to expand, I'll fall. So instead of dreaming, you hesitate. Instead of claiming your truth, you audit it for safety. Instead of expanding into who you could become, you shrink into what's proven, practical, or smart. This fear can show up as suppressing your vision. So you may downplay your dreams before anyone else can shoot them down. This can show up as over-rationalizing your intuition, turning insight into self-doubt the moment it feels risky, mocking your own hope, using sarcasm to stay in control of what might hurt, staying in student mode forever, always learning, never teaching, because you don't feel qualified, or even spiritually overcorrecting, rejecting anything too joyful, mystical, or open-minded out of fear it's naive. In your daily life, this might look like distrusting any sign, download, or gut feeling that doesn't come with proof. Avoiding taking bold leaps, even when you feel the pull. Clinging to logic, credentials, or facts to validate your path. Or feeling like your optimism or joy is too much or immature. Saturn in Sagittarius often creates the painful pattern of shrinking your spirit to avoid being disappointed again. Mastering Saturn in Sagittarius is radical self-trust in your own inner compass, even when the world doesn't agree. When you begin to heal this placement, you realize expansion doesn't require proof. It requires presence. That you don't have to justify your happiness, your vision, or your spiritual path. That the journey isn't always linear, but your soul still knows where it's going. You realize that believing in something bigger doesn't make you foolish. It makes you free. You stop outsourcing your truth to systems, institutions, or experts. You start owning your wisdom, even if it's messy, non-linear, and constantly evolving. Saturn in Sagittarius says, I trust the path I'm on, even if no one else gets it yet. You become the embodied truth seeker, the grounded visionary, the teacher, guide, or healer who leads with lived experience, not theory, because you've walked through spiritual fire and kept your light alive. Now, to rewrite the fear of this placement and reprogram it, the first step is to affirm my inner knowing is safe to follow. Use this when you feel yourself doubting your direction or needing outside validation. So you can try saying, even if I don't know the full path, I trust the step I'm being shown. It's safe to believe. It's safe to expand. It's safe to dream again. Next are some journaling prompts for healing the burn of betrayed belief. So you can ask yourself, what moment in my life made me stop trusting my inner truth? What fear tells me that believing equals danger? If I knew I wouldn't be shamed for it, what would I allow myself to believe in again? Next is permission to be bold practice. So each week, take one intuitive or expansive action, even if it doesn't make sense. So, for example, sign up for something just because you feel called. Share a spiritual download publicly. Make a decision based on trust, not proof. This is how Saturn starts trusting you again, when you stop waiting for certainty and start moving with faith. And finally, nervous system grounding for expansion. So when you feel that old panic of, what if I'm wrong? Pause. Breathe into your belly and say, I release the need to know everything. I follow what feels alive. You're not here to prove your truth. You're here to embody it. I'd love to hear how this resonated with you, so definitely let me know in the comments. And of course, be sure to like, share this with your friends who can also benefit from this message, and subscribe for more. And if you're done waiting for alignment and ready to be the alignment, my signature one-on-one sessions and tools are in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Saturn is at home in Capricorn, which means this placement is potent, powerful, and heavy. You came here to master structure, self-discipline, responsibility, and long-term success. But this mastery doesn't come from hustling or outperforming everyone else. It comes from learning to respect yourself even when the world doesn't. At the soul level, this is about building a life based on internal authority, not external approval. You are learning that success built on fear, shame, or performance will always collapse. But success built on alignment and integrity is unshakable. Your karma revolves around themes of power, status, self-worth, and proving yourself. But beneath all of that, there's a hidden fear that keeps you grinding while secretly feeling never enough. Saturn in Capricorn holds a deep-rooted terror of not measuring up, of being exposed as a fraud, of falling short of invisible, impossible standards. This fear often comes from childhood experiences of having to grow up fast or be the strong one. Environments where love was conditional on success or achievement. Past life memories of falling from power or disappointing those who relied on you. Or even being taught that rest, emotion, or vulnerability equals weakness. You may have unconsciously decided early on that your value equals productivity, and that rest or softness is something you earn, not something you deserve. Because of this, you live with a silent pressure. If I don't hold everything together, I'll lose everything. If I don't stay in control, I'll fall apart, and no one will be there to catch me. Now, this fear doesn't always scream. Sometimes it quietly shapes everything. So you may overwork to prove you're not lazy, even when your body is asking for rest. You may take on too much responsibility in relationships, family, work, because you don't trust anyone else will show up. You may suppress your feelings. Emotions feel inefficient or irrelevant to your goals. You may delay joy and pleasure, always telling yourself you'll rest after you accomplish more. Or you may fear failure so deeply that you sometimes avoid taking risk at all, because if you fail, you fear it will confirm your worst belief, that you're not good enough. Even when you succeed, it doesn't feel like enough. There is a constant inner critic whispering, you could have done more. You carry invisible pressure like a weight on your chest, and no one knows how much you're struggling because you don't want to burden anyone. Mastery for Saturn in Capricorn is liberation from performance-based worth. It's reclaiming your dignity without needing to prove anything. When you begin healing this placement, you realize you don't have to be the most competent person in the room to be worthy of rest. You don't have to earn love through success. And you don't have to carry the world on your back to be valuable. You learn to build slow, aligned success, not because you're scared of failure, but because you believe in what you're creating. You stop outsourcing your power to how others see you. You redefine success on your own terms. You become a living example of what happens when discipline meets soul. True Saturn in Capricorn mastery is this: I no longer hustle to be seen. I lead because I trust myself. Now, to rewire the fear of this placement and reprogram it, the first step is to affirm, my worth isn't earned, it's embodied. Repeat this mantra until your nervous system believes it. Even when I rest, I am still valuable. Even when I fall short, I am still worthy. My success is safe to build slowly. This rewires the core lie that your value is only measured in achievement. Next are some journaling prompts around the pressure I carry. So ask yourself, what would I do differently if I didn't have to prove I was capable? Where did I learn that failure equals rejection? Whose voice is the inner critic in my head actually mimicking? These prompts help you locate the root of the pressure and begin separating from it. Next is rest as a radical act. So start treating rest as a practice of self-trust, not laziness. Set a timer for 15 minutes and do absolutely nothing productive. Sit with the discomfort. This is your healing. Capricorn energy doesn't soften easily, but the more you can stay with the discomfort of stillness, the more you reclaim your authority from the grind. And finally, do an emotional micro practice. This is about the one who holds me. So lie down and place your hand on your heart. Imagine someone holding you in full, unconditional support. And whisper to yourself, I don't have to carry it all. I am held. I am safe. And I am not alone. Let your inner child know that being soft doesn't mean being weak. It means being real. I'd love to hear how this resonated with you, so be sure to let me know in the comments. And of course, be sure to like, share this with your friends, and subscribe for more. And if you're ready to follow the nudge that brought you here, my signature one-on-one sessions and tools are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Saturn in Aquarius is the soul's contract to own your difference and use it to elevate the collective. You came here to embody the truth that freedom is responsibility and authenticity is service. This is not about fitting in. It's about building something so aligned with your soul that the right people can find you, and the rest simply fall away. With Saturn in Aquarius, you are here to master standing firm in your unique truth, living outside the box while staying grounded in impact, and leading with innovation, vision, and integrity, not performance or validation. This is a placement of the sacred rebel, the cosmic architect, the conscious disruptor. But to fully embody that power, you have to confront the inner wound that taught you it's not safe to be different. The core subconscious fear with this placement is the fear of being rejected, cast out, or unloved for being too different. This is the wound of the outsider. At some point, this life or another, you were told, you don't belong. You're too weird. You'll never be accepted if you keep thinking like that. Saturn in Aquarius carries the karmic imprint of exile, of being punished or abandoned for thinking differently, loving differently, believing differently. Because of this, your subconscious forms a painful belief. If I want to belong, I have to shrink my truth. If I want connection, I have to pretend to be someone else. This fear often leads you to mask, perform, intellectualize, or completely disconnect from your heart, because emotional vulnerability feels like the fastest route to rejection. Now, this fear doesn't always look loud. It often looks strategic, because you've learned how to blend in just enough to survive. So you may intellectualize your emotions, staying in your head to avoid emotional exposure. You may detach from groups or communities, even when you're deeply craving connection, because being excluded feels worse than being alone. You may play it cool, acting unbothered or aloof, so no one sees how deeply you actually care. You may underplay your gifts, especially if they're too out there, spiritual, creative, or unconventional. And you may be overly rigid in your self-image, trying so hard to not be controlled by the group that you may resist any intimacy or feedback. In daily life, this can show up as social anxiety masked by detachment, building entire identities around rebellion just to stay safe, or feeling like you're either performing or completely invisible. There's often a split between your authentic self and the acceptable version of you the world has rewarded. Mastery for Saturn and Aquarius is radical self-ownership. You don't need to be like them. You don't need to be loved by everyone. You don't need to dilute your brilliance to be included. You're here to build your own room, your own world, your own rules, and trust that the right people will resonate. When you align with this energy, you become the voice for those who've been silenced, the leader who innovates without ego, the vessel for collective elevation, rooted in individual truth. You stop fearing rejection because you're no longer trying to gain acceptance through performance. You no longer need anyone to get you because you get you. Saturn in Aquarius mastery says, "My truth doesn't need permission. I came here to lead, not to fit in." This is where innovation meets integrity, where personal freedom meets collective purpose, where your uniqueness stops being a burden and becomes your legacy. To rewrite this fear and reprogram it, the first step is to affirm, "My difference is my divine assignment." Say this whenever you feel that pull to shrink, hide, or over-explain who you are. And you can also try saying, "I wasn't meant to blend in. I was meant to be a signal to others like me. I don't need everyone. I just need alignment." This helps your nervous system break the loop of survival-based people-pleasing Next are some journaling prompts. So you can ask yourself, where do I still perform or shrink in order to be accepted? What part of me still believes that being too much equals abandonment? How would I show up if I trusted that my truth would call in my soul family? These prompts help dissolve the emotional split between your authentic self and your adapted self. Next is a soul signal ritual. So do one thing this week that visibly reflects who you really are. No filters, no apologies. So share your weirdest idea. Post something vulnerable and honest. Say the thing no one else is saying, but you know that it needs to be said. This is how you prove to yourself that rejection isn't your death. It's your redirection. And finally is nervous system reclaiming. So sit in stillness with one hand on your heart and the other on your solar plexus. Close your eyes and say, I release the need to perform. I return to who I am. Breathe until your body softens. Let your authenticity feel safe again. I'd love to hear how this resonated with you, so definitely let me know in the comments. And of course, be sure to like, share this with your friends who can also benefit from this message, and subscribe to stay in the flow. And if you're ready to claim the version of you that doesn't settle, my signature one-on-one sessions and tools are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching. Saturn in Pisces is the soul's contract to bring structure to the spiritual and boundaries to the unseen. This is not an easy task because Saturn deals in the tangible, while Pisces swims in the invisible. You are here to master the balance between surrender and sovereignty, between divine trust and self-responsibility. With this placement, you carry immense spiritual sensitivity. You are intuitive, empathic, and deeply affected by the emotional and energetic states of others. But instead of seeing this as a gift, your soul chose this Saturn path to learn how to hold it, protect it, and direct it without drowning in it. At its core, Saturn in Pisces asks you to rebuild your relationship with the unseen. You're here to create real-world impact through your spiritual insight, not in spite of it. But first, you have to face the fear that's haunted you for lifetimes. This is the fear of being powerless, lost, or consumed by the unseen. Saturn in Pisces often carries the karmic imprint of being betrayed by intuition, abandoned by God or spirit during traumatic events, made to feel crazy for being sensitive or spiritually gifted, or emotionally overwhelmed and unable to hold the line. This creates a deep inner belief. If I fully trust what I know, I'll lose control. If I open myself to spirit or others, I'll be used, abandoned, or erased. You may also carry unhealed wounds from lifetimes where you were persecuted for your spirituality or manipulated by those who abused power in the name of faith. As a result, you now associate openness with danger. This placement holds the subconscious belief that safety equals control through withdrawal. So you learn to suppress your emotions, numb your intuition, or spiritually bypass your real needs because you don't trust what's real and what's projection anymore. This fear often runs in the background like a low hum, but it quietly dominates everything. So you may emotionally disassociate, drifting into fantasy, escapism, or spiritual bypassing when life gets hard. You may doubt your intuition. Even when it's screaming the truth, you second guess it to avoid the risk of being wrong. You absorb other people's pain and then blame yourself for feeling too much. You may avoid boundaries or swing to the other extreme, building walls so thick that no one, including spirit, can reach you. Or you may romanticize suffering, unconsciously equating pain with virtue, or believing that being overly self-sacrificing makes you more pure or spiritual. In daily life, you may feel constantly overwhelmed, energetically invaded, or secretly unsure whether your life path is even real. You crave clarity, grounding, and peace, but don't know how to find it without disconnecting from your spiritual self. Mastery for Saturn in Pisces is becoming a clear, grounded vessel for divine energy. Not a martyr, not a sponge, not a ghost in your own life, but a sacred channel who can receive without collapsing. When you start to heal, you realize your sensitivity is not a flaw. It's a superpower. That you are not here to carry everyone else's suffering. You realize that boundaries don't disconnect you from others. They connect you to yourself. You realize that you can trust both logic and your intuition. And that discipline doesn't kill magic. It amplifies it. You learn how to create containers for your creative, spiritual, and emotional energy so that it actually flows instead of floods. Saturn in Pisces Mastery says, I do not disappear to stay safe. I stand in truth, and spirit meets me there. You become the grounded mystic, the intuitive strategist, the compassionate leader who trusts their own inner compass more than anyone else's. Now, some tools to rewrite this fear and reprogram it. The first step is to know that boundaries are spiritual. Repeat this daily, especially when you feel guilty for saying no or pulling your energy back. So you can try saying, every time I protect my energy, I honor the divine within me. My energy is sacred. I decide where it flows. This reminds your inner child that safety isn't found through disappearing. It's found through conscious choice. Next are some journaling prompts to help you to build safety within. So you can ask yourself, what moments made me feel abandoned by God, spirit, or intuition? Where do I still associate sensitivity with danger? What beliefs tell me I have to suffer to be worthy? These prompts help surface the unspoken contracts still guiding your relationship with emotion and faith. Next is a grounded intuition practice. So each morning or evening, sit with your hand over your heart and ask, what do I feel before I take on the world? Then write down the first 3 words or images that come. This will help you separate your energy from others and build trust in your own intuitive voice without overwhelm. And finally, the sacred no practice. So choose one place in your life where your energy feels invaded, scattered, or unclear. Then practice giving it a sacred no, not out of fear, but out of devotion to your peace. Saying no is how you seal your auric field. It teaches Saturn that you can hold your power without needing chaos to justify it. Be sure to let me know what clicked for you and drop it in the comments. And of course, be sure to share this with your friends who can also benefit from this message, and subscribe to stay in the flow. And if you're ready to step into your upgraded timeline, my signature one-on-one sessions and tools are all in the description box below. I appreciate you, and thanks so much for watching.